BMW launched the X5 and X6M, the first generation, back in 2009. Now, in its third generation as a 2020 model year, we are standing next to the X5M. There's also going to be an X6M in regular M and competition guises. BMW has flown us here to Phoenix, Arizona to drive both cars. We're going to hop behind the wheel of this X5M first. This is the competition model with 617 horsepower to see how it drives. Let's go ahead and get it out on the road. Alrighty folks, we're out on the road. I actually lied about what we'd be driving. I swapped out the X5M you just saw for an Ametrine, that's the name of the color, X6M. This is also the competition as well. Ametrine is like this purple color, and I just loved the color so much, I thought, why not take that one out for a ride and see how it drives? So just like the X5, 617 horsepower from a 4.4 liter twin turbocharged V8 engine. That's their S63, not to be confused with the Mercedes S63 V8 engine. Now that's the competition spec. You can get this car as a non-competition where it'll only produce 600 horsepower. So then you'll only get from 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. This will do it in 3.7 seconds. Maybe we should test that out right here. We're coming up on a nice bit of straight road. We do have a car in front of us, but let's go ahead and let them get ahead of us just a little bit. Oh, they're nicely pulling off for us. How nice of them. Let's go a little faster so that we can get to the straight part of this road. And we'll do a launch in this car. For that, I'm going to take it out of its road setting, and I'm going to hold this M mode button. Now we are in track mode. So now I'm going to come to a full stop. This is how you leave soccer practice in an X6M. Oh boy. Woohoo! That was 0 to 60 in about 3.7 seconds. I don't have a stopwatch with me, but seemed pretty accurate. I have a feeling BMW underrates this car, so I think you're actually going to do a little better than 3.7 seconds out on the road. The race mode is actually going to shut off the screen. You're not going to be able to see anything on here. I think it's defaulted back to my sport mode. Track mode is going to be the most aggressive. It's going to dial in the steering. You've got different modes on the brakes. You've got the most ferocious shifts on the transmission. You can operate that manually, 8-speed automatic on all of these cars. So I can wind it out to red line. Let's see how it stays planted. Now let's see how those brakes do. Oh yes. Brakes are great. This is a big beast, but it stops on a dime. And it just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. We've got a big straightaway here. And let's bring her down hard on the brakes. Oh, yes. Yeah, the brakes are great on this car. The engine is fantastic. I would like it to be a little bit louder. Because we have the competition, we do have the M Sport exhaust, but I just don't get enough of it in the cabin. It's not loud enough for me. If you widen down the window, obviously you can hear it pretty loud, but the fact that you have to wind down the window to hear your 617 horsepower car, a bit silly to me. I think that's just because this is such a well-insulated car. That's probably why it's so quiet. I would either like to hear more from the speakers or just maybe get an aftermarket exhaust. Now let's talk about the other aspects of the driving experience here, like the steering. The steering is pretty direct, especially in race mode here. You're going to get tighter responsiveness from the steering when you're in your sport and race settings. You only get race mode on the competition model. And if I go ahead and put it back into its road setting, it's going to lighten up the steering, it's going to be less responsive on the brakes and the throttle, and it's going to dial back the transmission logic as well. The steering is kind of a one-way conversation though. It's pretty direct, like it's very responsive when I give it an input, but it's not communicating back to me. A lot of BMWs have lacked steering feedback recently. This is one of them, but again, this is such a big car. People are going to be driving this on the highway, so it's fine with it not being a super ultimate driver's car. It's more of a family car that goes really, really fast. And the suspension, I was worried that this car would be a little too stiff, because when I drove the X3 and X4Ms, those cars beat the crap out of my spine. This car is not that bad. It's definitely firm. You will feel it more than in a regular X5. We have the competition, so we've got 21s in the front, staggered 22s in the back, which are wide, and you definitely feel undulations on rough roads, but this road that we're on right now is pretty smooth, and I don't feel too much of a problem here. There is some serious noise from these tires. They are, I think they're 315s in the rear on this car. We're gonna go ahead for a pass here. Woo, baby. Passing is simple and easy in this car. When you let off, you do get a little bit of bark from the exhaust. You don't get the screaminess that you get from an AMG, but BMW M has always been more about a little subtlety versus the AMG cars. So I love the way this drives. Don't really expect like a trap car here. It's huge after all. It will fit the family dog with your kids in the back screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, go a little faster, go faster." Put it in M mode, push the M buttons. They're gonna be really excited when you go for a road trip in this car. And when you do, you've got all the driver assists. This car basically drives itself, which is weird for an M car, but great for a road trip. This is just an awesome family vehicle, and the changes that they've made aren't just contained on the outside and under the hood. You do get some changes on the interior as well. So we're going to go ahead and pull on over so that we can check out the changes on the cabin for the X5M and the X6M. So now that we've driven the X5M, we've pulled over so I can talk to you about the interior. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Go ahead and watch my previous X5 reviews or my X7 review to get more of a deep dive on BMW's interior technology, iDrive 7.0. But I want to talk to you about some of the changes here on the M model. So we have the M1 and M2 buttons, which are programmable, so you can change all of the settings on the little controls here and save them to either the M1 or M2 button. We've got a really chunky steering wheel here with, of course, the signature M color stitching here on the inside. I do like the way this steering wheel feels, although I have told BMW I miss their bigger blade paddles that they used to do in the last generation. These are just not big enough for my liking. We have the similar gauges that we get in other BMW models, although the big difference here is when I go into M mode, sport mode, it's going to change to become a lot more simplistic, and if I hold M mode to get into its track setting, it's going to dim the iDrive, so I can't control anything there. That can be done here using my M mode button. So I've got road, sport, and if you opt for the competition model, which is what we have here, you get track. You do not get track on the regular ones. I can change all of the adjustments here if I click setup. We've got different setups for our engine, our chassis, our steering, our brakes. It's extremely complicated. There's so many different modes, and I just haven't had enough time with the car to figure out exactly how I'd want to set this up. You can even change the exhaust. Because we have the competition model, we get the M Sport exhaust, which is a little bit louder, but still not loud enough for my liking. They pump a little bit of engine noise through the speakers. I believe that's what I was hearing while we were driving, but this car is just so well insulated that you don't get enough of the exhaust. If you put the windows down, you'll hear how loud this car truly is. And of course, we have a different shift knob than what we get in a normal X5. You can't get the Swarovski crystal anymore, but you do get this nice M stitched one. And we have different modes for the transmission. If I go ahead and put it in drive, we can make the transmission shifts either really soft or really ferocious, depending on what we want, which is pretty cool. It's just an unbelievable amount of customization, but you don't lose the luxury. We've got this nice carbon fiber. Other materials are available as well. I'm sitting on nice leather seats that do have massage function as well. So yes, this is a very fast vehicle, but it's also a very comfortable vehicle and a very practical vehicle. Let's go ahead and check out the back ends of the X5 and X6Ms. The biggest differences between the X5M and the X6M, you're not going to really feel it out on the road or behind the wheel, you're going to see it back here, where the X5M has a much more conventional SUV profile with a flat tailgate. The X6 is styled more like a coupe, it has sort of like a fastback, which means when we open up the tailgate on the X5M, it's going to open up this top part first, and then you can open up the bottom part like a Range Rover has the exact same thing, or a Lexus LX 570, so you can take a nice seat while we talk about the differences in trunk space. In here, in the X5M, you've got 33.9 cubic feet of storage behind the second row. No third row available, but BMW has included some under-the-floor storage with a hydraulic jack, like a strut, like you'd find underneath the hood of your car. That's pretty interesting as well. And if I pull this tab here, the seats are automatically going to fold down to give you 72.3 cubic feet of storage. Now, if you opt for the X6, those numbers are going to be cut down quite a bit. 26.6 cubic feet behind the second row in the X6, which is not too much less. Where you're really going to lose it is in the total amount of space. You only get 59.7 cubic feet in the X6, which is why I think I'd rather have the X5. You also get better rear visibility because this is a standard SUV and it doesn't have that raked roofline. Pricing for the 2020 BMW X5M starts at about $105,000. $114,000 gets you the competition model. The X6M is a little more expensive, about $3,000 more, so $108,000 for the regular one, about $117,000 for the competition model. At this price level, what are you doing if you don't get the competition model? You're getting 17 extra horsepower, some additional stuff inside and on the exterior as well. I think the competition model is the one you're going to want to go with. I say get the X5 because I just like the cleaner looks of it better, but make sure you get that awesome purple that BMW is offering because it is just wild. I hope you've enjoyed this video. See you next time.